growing journey. I hope that this finds you well and at peace. As you can tell by the title, today I am going to be talking about God. So I would like to preface this video by saying that if you are tuning into this video and you do not believe in God, I say to you, that's great. If you are tuning into this video and you say, I do believe in God, what is she talking about? I say, that's great as well. If you are tuning into this video and you are saying, well, I'm not sure about a God. I don't sit either way. I'm not saying that I do believe and I'm not saying that I don't believe. I say that is great as well. My feeling about it is where you are at spiritually or religiously is where you are at. And it doesn't mean that where you are at while you're sitting and looking at this video is going to be where you are at come, let's just say, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road. We are always evolving. We are always changing. And so I understand that, and I recognize that this video is just to put something into your consciousness about God, right? From the time that we enter into this world, whether we believe or don't believe, or we believe in, we're humanists, there has always been the introduction of God from someone's belief system, right? And so we wrestle with it, right? Or we come in contact with it. Let's just say that, because some people don't wrestle with it, right? I don't want to put that out there, but we're always coming into the notion of God, and we can, based upon how we evolve and how we see it, we come to our own decisions. But there's something that is always put into our consciousness about it. And I want to offer something to put inside your consciousness about God. So I just wanted to preface that before we get into the video, that wherever you are at and whatever you believe, you are welcome here. I don't want you to be hateful towards anyone, but whatever your belief system is, you are welcome here, because that's just where you are at this time. And I am not, that has nothing to do with me, and it is your own journey and it's your own path that you have to go on. Like I said, I just want to enter something into the conversation. So this video is really inspired by a historian and a professor, and also it is inspired by just my own spiritual evolution and prayer and reflection during this stage of my life. And in this stage of my life, as the video says, God is supposed to look like you. And when I say you, I include myself in it. And I really started, I think I may have begun years earlier, but I really started to talk about and even put into my own consciousness that God should look like me, or by John Henrik Clarke, or he was born John Henry Clarke. And for those of you that don't know him, he is one of the pioneers of Pan-African studies. And so just brilliant and profound. And I was preparing for a paper, and I found his words one day, and they have really stuck with me and has opened me to more of myself and more of my relationship um, with a supreme being, with God, who I call God. Some of you all will give it a different name, give that supreme being, consciousness, whatever, a different name. In my understanding right now, I say God. So I'm looking down because I want to read the quote. And he goes on to state, my main point here is that you are the child of God, and God is part of you. Then, in your imagination, God's supposed to look like you. And when you accept a picture of a deity assigned to you by another people, you become the spiritual prisoners of that other people. And when I read it, it just really rocked my world. Now, some of you are going to be tuning into this video and say, well, I can click off because I've already known this, and that's brilliant. And some of you may have not had this encounter, so that's why I want to share it with you. And so when I read it, it was the first time I really gave myself permission to say, okay, I have been assigned a God by an institution. I grew up in the Black church, and I was assigned a God by someone other than myself. And I realized that I had been a prisoner of that understanding of God, and that I was assigned a God that was male. I was assigned, I was assigned a God that was set by Judeo-Christian standards. And in that assignment, I had become really a prisoner of that thought. And I realized that there was a lot of unpacking that I had to do, because I had even lived and worked on the continent of Africa, where, sure, I lived in predominantly Christian countries. There were also Muslims and Jews that lived in those countries, but the countries in the eastern and western part, primarily Christian denomination, but there were other belief systems there. And here I was on the continent of Africa and never gave myself permission to engage a God that was not assigned to me by Judeo-Christian standards. So with the empowerment from John Henrik Clarke, I was able to just start to unpack. So I'm going to just unpack for myself, and you as well. You may be coming from a different racial, ethnic, socioeconomic background, also religious tradition, and so you may start to do your unpacking from that lens. But I'm just going to share from you my unpacking that I started to go through. So looking at me, you can tell that I am Black. I am a Black American. I was born and raised in the South of the United States. And one of the things that I am very much aware of is that my ancestors who were brought here, who were kidnapped and taken from their countries of origin, they did not believe in in a Messiah called Christ. That was not their understanding. That was not what was going on the continent of Africa when they were kidnapped and 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 entered into this country and enslaved in this country, right? So, but what I am very much aware of is that they had a belief system, they had traditions, there was a belief in God. Like I said, I lived on the continent of Africa, and one thing that I do know about the continent of Africa is that, yes, there is Christianity. A lot of missionaries brought that there. There's also Islam that there. Africans are very spiritual people, and so there has always been a belief in a higher being. Maybe not to what Western standards may have wanted it to be, but there's always been a belief in a higher power system. And so I recognize that my ancestors had that belief. But then they, as I said, were kidnapped, they were tortured, they were raped, they were terrorized in this country, and they were given a language that was not their own, and they were given a religion that was not their own. And they were given that in order to follow a supreme being, these are the rules that will be given to you. Now they adapted it to their cultural understanding, but there was this God figure that was now given to them that was Judeo-Christian and not a God figure that was from them. And my ancestors then passed that belief down to their descendants, and their descendants passed it down, and so forth and so forth. And so I know that I am on the receiving end of being part of a religious understanding, spiritual understanding that is in connection with a God that does not look like me, right? And so it was really important for me to be able to give myself permission to say that I am part of a God that looks like me. Therefore, that God is dark-skinned, like I said, has kinky hair, and has female attributes. And so, in able to do that, I understood that, and not judging for the decisions that my ancestors made, but understanding that in their way of praising a supreme being, they did it under the context that was given to them here in these United States. But I also have now the freedom to say that God really does look like me, and God has my attributes. And in that understanding, I was able to see not only myself in a different way, but to see God in. And that I did not have to see God through a lens that I read when I read Torah or read the Bible. And it's nothing wrong with that God that is defined in those sacred texts, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong, because the individuals who um, wrote those sacred texts, they were writing in relation to a God that looked like them. So there isn't anything wrong with that. However, it's important for me to understand that they were writing from their own knowing and their own understanding and their own beautiful relationship with a creator that looked like them, that knew their language, that knew who they were. And so it's important for me to understand that the same way that those beautiful individuals wrote in a context to their understanding of God, that it's important for me to now develop a relationship and a context with a God that looks like me, and a God that is not assigned to me. And I'm telling you, when you are able, when you give yourself permission to be able to do that, it really does free you, because you are able to take God out of a box that was assigned to you anyway, and free yourself in that, right? Because you're no longer saying, okay, God is male, God is from this particular lineage. You look in the mirror and you say, there is God. Here I am and there is God, because God looks like me. And it allows, it not only does it free you, but then it allows you to look at people in a different way, because just like you that have that sense of freedom, you allow others to be free in their own evolution and understanding of God, because God looks like them. And you don't have to be assigned, you don't have to be given, you don't have to be told. And I'm not saying that, you don't have to go to a sacred text and to see what God is. Now, I'm not saying don't read sacred texts. I love reading sacred texts. I love reading Torah. I love reading the Bible. I love reading the Holy Quran. I love reading the Therigatha, which is a Buddhist text, and it's actually by women of color that followed the Buddha. So I'm not saying that you don't read it and you don't go and understand, but you don't have to live under a God that's assigned outside of you. You can go to the mirror and see God and understand God. And so I just wanted to leave you with that thought, with that consciousness on today. This may not be for you, and that is okay too. But if it is for you, I encourage you to unpack what you have historically believed by someone about what God is, and to think about the ways in which you may not be totally, that you may be a prisoner of that belief system because it was assigned to you, right? And so I think it's very important for us, especially at this time, to critically engage with what is being assigned to us, what is being prescribed to us. And I think that this time is a way that the universe, Mother Nature, God is saying, reflect upon what you have been taught. Reflect upon it. No longer be bound by chains that were given to you, but rather free yourself. free yourself from your own, and give yourself permission to see the beauty that's inside of you. Give yourself the permission to see that God looks like you. All right. Blessings to you, and I look forward to being with you on next time. Peace.